Today's lesson is Study Sounds Alarm on Mental Health. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
Hello, I'm Kiki.
And welcome to the month of December. My goodness, time is flying. We're almost to the end of the year, and it's almost Christmas time. And, of course, we're going to be talking about Christmas this month in our programs. But today we're going to talk about something that has to do with mental health, okay? Mental health just refers to how you are in your brain. Are you depressed? Are you schizophrenic, etc., etc.? And I guess we've got some fairly bad news here. More and more people will suffer from a mental illness in the future, at least according to a study.
Right. And in today's society, it's really important that we talk more and feel more comfortable about mental health because it's becoming such a prominent thing in society. So it's important that we learn more about each other and support each other.
Indeed. So this study is sounding the alarm on mental health. It's letting us know that mental health will be more and more of a problem in the future, but I'm sure we'll be able to take care of it and people won't have to suffer too much. So let's begin our lesson by listening to the introductory paragraph, and then we'll come back to analyze it for you.
Study sounds alarm on mental health. A study of 156,331 people from 29 countries has predicted that 50% of the world's population will suffer from a mental illness by the age of 75.
大家好，首先来看标题里的片语 sound 或是 raise the alarm， 意思为敲警钟或是发出警报。例如A soldier on guard sounded the alarm when he saw the enemy approaching. 一名站岗的士兵看见敌军接近时，便发出了警报。或者 Thanks to the smoke detector raising the alarm, the residents of this building could put out the fire in time and nobody was hurt. 多亏了烟雾探测器发出警报，这栋大楼的居民才能及时将火扑灭，没有造成任何伤亡。再来介绍动词 predict。它是预料、预测或是预言的意思。例如 Nobody could predict that the housing market would fall. 没有人能预料到房市会下跌。或是 The weatherman predicted a storm this afternoon, but the skies are clear. 天气预报员预测今天下午会有暴风雨，但天空很晴朗。另外补充这个字的形容词 predictable. P-R-E-D-I-C-T-A-B-L-E. Predictable.它的意思是可预计的、可预料的，或是墨守成规的。我们可以说 If markets were predictable, anyone could get rich by investing. 如果市场是可以预料的，那么任何人都可以透过投资来致富了。或是 The film had a predictable ending. 这部电影的结局很老套。
Okay, so in the title of today's lesson, we've got the phrase to sound an alarm, okay? That just means an alarm goes off. Basically, it gives us a warning. And, of course, somebody conducted a study. This study was conducted by the University of Queensland and Harvard Medical School. And, of course, it has sounded the alarm on mental health. It has come up with some results that we need to know about. And it's telling us that in the future, things could be pretty bad. They could be pretty depressing. So we probably should make preparations right now. Now, here it says a study of 156,331 people from 29 countries has predicted that 50% of the world's population will suffer from a mental illness by the age of 75. So when you get to the age of 75, there's a good chance that you'll suffer from some kind of mental illness. At least that's according to this study.
And in this paragraph, we have the word predicted. And basically, it is to say that an event or action will happen in the future, especially as a result of knowledge or experience that we already know. So in this case, we know that a study has been done. A group of people, 156,331 people, they've been a part of this study. And a study is basically when scientists come together or doctors and teachers come together to try to understand an issue. So there's an issue that they want to figure out. They want to find out more about how mental illness is affecting everyone. So they created this study, and then they try to understand more about this group of people in this study. And we see that this study has people from 29 countries. So it's a wider range of different types of cultures so they can get more information for the study.
Very few people can actually predict the future. A lot of people who invest in the stock market are indeed trying to predict the trends in the stock market. Of course, you want the stocks that you buy to go up in value so you can later sell them and make a profit. And so your ability to predict trends in the stock market will help you be successful in that regard. And yes, indeed, this study is quite alarming because it means that lots of people will have mental problems in the future. Let's find out more by moving on to the second part. It's quite long, so listen carefully.
The University of Queensland and Harvard Medical School study found that the risk of illness for women is 7% higher than the 46% risk for men, with men more likely to have problems with alcohol and women more likely to experience post-traumatic stress disorder. It also discovered a worrying trend linking depression, anxiety, and substance abuse to a rise in the number of teenagers attempting suicide. Moreover, it found that among all people who experience a mental disorder, half acquire the disorder by age 19. According to the study's lead author, Dr. John McGrath, the peak age for a mental disorder to begin is 15.
第二部分我们看到名词 abuse， 意思是滥用、虐待或是辱骂。例如 The famous singer died of drug abuse. 那位有名的歌手死于药物滥用。接下来介绍 acquire， 这个动词有获得、购得或是养成，也可以是学到的意思。例如 Theon acquired a new car by winning a lottery. Theon 抽奖中了一辆新车。或者 After living in England for so long, Chris has acquired a British accent. 在英国住了这么久之后 Chris 有了英国腔。
Welcome back to part 2 about mental health. Let's find out what this study at University of Queensland and Harvard Medical School has found out about mental illness. So the paragraph begins with the University of Queensland, which is in Australia, and Harvard Medical School, which is in the United States. So these different universities, they've come together, they're working together to study this mental health issue, and they found out that the risk of illness for women is 7% higher than the 46% risk for men, with men more likely to have problems with alcohol and women more likely to experience post-traumatic stress disorder. So there is a significant difference between men and women, or men and women that have a biological mental state. And they're saying that women have more risk of getting mental illness, which is 7% higher.
Right, so we have this figure of 46% risk for men of suffering from some kind of mental illness in the future, and women will suffer 7% more, or a 7% higher rate than the men. And first of all, let's talk about what men are going to do or how they're going to deal with their mental illness. They may have problems with alcohol, which means, of course, they'll drink a lot of alcoholic beverages to sort of drown their sorrows in a glass of whiskey or something like that. A lot of people do turn to alcohol to deal with their problems. Some people do drugs. Some people drive their cars really fast, and some people smoke cigarettes or whatever. So men will probably deal with their problems by drinking alcohol, and women will more likely suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, sometimes shortened to PTSD. That's something that happens to people after they've had a traumatic experience, like being in a war or something. Lots of veterans in the United States who fought in Vietnam or in the Gulf War and stuff like that saw lots of terrible things, and so when they go back home, they have problems adjusting to civilian life, and they suffer from this PTSD thing. And women are going to experience that more and more.
Because women are generally in a position where they experience different things either at the workplace or sometimes even at home. Sometimes they might experience some sort of abuse at home or at work. They might experience unfair treatment. So many different things can cause PTSD. And PTSD, of course, comes with a lot of other types of symptoms that make a person very upset. They're not able to function as well. They can have depression. They can have anxiety. They can get really scared when somebody approaches them too quickly. So these are all different possibilities of higher risk for women to get PTSD. And that is why women have a 7% higher risk to get some sort of mental illness.
Okay, here in the next sentence it says, the survey also discovered a worrying trend linking depression, anxiety, and substance abuse to arise in the number of teenagers attempting suicide. So this is a worrying trend, which means something that may happen or it's more likely to happen in the future. It's connecting or linking depression, anxiety, and substance abuse to arise in the number of teenagers trying to kill themselves. So we've got depression, we've got anxiety, and we've got substance abuse. So depression, of course, is when you just don't feel happy all the time. It's a medical condition. It's not really the kind of depression you feel when your cat dies or something like that. It's far more serious. We've also got anxiety, which you might have because you have pressure from school or from your job or from your family or whatever. And we've also got substance abuse, where you're taking drugs and it's causing problems.
And just going back to the words depression and anxiety, this word is often used interchangeably, but actually what a lot of people don't realize that while you can have both depression and anxiety at the same time, it's important to understand that when somebody has depression, it is when they are too focused on something that has happened to them in the past. Whereas anxiety is something that they're worried about not happening or something that might be happening in the future. And this is really important because this happens a lot in Taiwan, where patients, they'll often go into the doctor's office and tell them that, oh, I have depression, but actually what they have is anxiety. So this happens in Taiwan where patients can be misdiagnosed and they're treated for the wrong thing. So it's important to understand the difference between depression and anxiety.
And it's important to remember that if you feel you're suffering from these illnesses, that you should conduct a professional as soon as you can. And again, we've got substance abuse, and abuse just means you're not treating something like it's supposed to be treated. Like we've got spousal abuse, where the husband beats the wife or the wife beats the husband or whatever. That is abuse in a marriage. We have child abuse as well. Maybe the parents are being too mean to the kids. And so here we're talking about substance abuse, just using these substances like alcohol or drugs too much, and it's causing problems.
It's causing problems, so it has a rise in the number of teenagers attempting suicide. So nowadays, we have a lot of things to distract us on the internet, and it has disconnected human communication. So a lot of times, teenagers, they might not really understand how to process their feelings, so they don't talk to their parents because they feel like they can't, and they don't talk to their teachers or other adults around them because they're not sure how to process how they're feeling. And often they're just stuck in their own little world where actually if they asked for help, they might be able to get more understanding of what's going on in their developing minds. But instead, they turn to substance abuse, which would lead to suicide. And because depression and anxiety and also the use of these substances, they can all add on to depression or add on to the stress. And then it'll make them feel like they don't want to go on living anymore. So this is something that is growing in society now.
Point well taken. And related to this, moreover, or also in addition, it found that among all people who experience a mental disorder, half acquire the disorder by age 19. So if all people are getting some kind of mental problem, half of those people will acquire or get that disorder when they're 19 years old. And according to the study's lead author, Dr. John McGrath, the peak age for a mental disorder to begin is 15. That sounds kind of alarming. People are becoming mentally ill at a very young age. What the heck is going on? Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third part and wrap things up.
McGrath emphasized the importance of young people being able to complete key life events, like finishing their educations and starting careers without being disturbed by mental health problems. He argued that the study's results indicate that more money should be directed towards diagnosing and treating disorders as early as possible to reduce their likelihood of becoming more serious.
第三部分先介绍动词 disturb， 有扰乱、妨碍、破坏或是使点点点心神不宁的意思。我们可以说 It is very rude to disturb people who are trying to study. 打扰正在读书的人是很不礼貌的。又或者说 Overhunting disturbed the natural order of the forest. 过度狩猎破坏了森林原有的自然守则。最后一个单字是 likelihood。这个名词的意思是可能、可能性，或是可能的事。例如 According to the Weather Channel, there is a strong likelihood that it will rain tomorrow. 根据气象报道，明天很有可能会下雨。或是 Wearing a seatbelt reduces the likelihood of being seriously injured in a car crash. 系安全带可以降低在车祸中受重伤的可能性。
Welcome back to the third part of our article about mental health. In our last paragraph, we found out that the peak age for developing mental disorder starts at the age 15. So Dr. McGrath continues, he emphasized the importance of young people being able to complete key life events like finishing their educations and starting careers without being disturbed by mental health problems. So this is basically saying that young people should be able to complete important things or important milestones in their youth without being disturbed by mental health problems and can just do their school, finish their school without having to worry about depression or anxiety and things like that.
Now, here we've got the word disturbed. That's the past tense and past participle of the word disturb, which means to be bothered by something. And it's a phrase to be disturbed by something. You don't want to be bothered by mental health problems, or you don't want to be disturbed by mental health problems. Yeah, finish your education and start your career without those problems, although that sounds easier said than done. And he argued that the study's results indicate that more money should be directed towards diagnosing and treating disorders as early as possible to reduce their likelihood of becoming more serious. So again, we're talking about the comments by the lead author of the survey, Dr. John McGrath. And he emphasized the fact that young people should complete key life events. And he argued that the results indicate that more money should be directed towards diagnosing and treating disorders. So something's directed towards something, it is used in that direction or used for that purpose. And here we've got the phrase or the word to diagnose, which means you are a doctor or a health professional determines what your problem is. And the noun form is diagnosis. Sorry, my diagnosis is final. You have this problem and you need to deal with it. So yes, we need to have people determine that people have these problems early on and to treat them as early as possible in order to reduce the likelihood of them becoming more serious. Likelihood just refers to the chances that something will happen. So basically, we want to nip this problem in the bud so that it does not expand and people get really depressed or have a lot of anxiety or suffer from other kinds of mental illnesses.
So today's article was more serious, but an important matter. So let's turn things over to our favorite Chinese teacher, Henny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第3部分的最后一句提到，马盖斯博士主张该研究的结果表明应该投入更多资金来尽早诊断和治疗这个疾病，以减少其变得更加严重的可能性。那这个句子里有出现2个单字，一个是 diagnose， 另外一个是 likelihood。那我们要分别来补充它们的字根、字首、字尾。首先要介绍的是 DIA 这个字首啊，它表示穿越或是跨越，那它可以指说从这一端到另一端的2端之间，所以这个 DIA 它就可以表达在点点点之间的意思。好，那它也可以指说涵盖从这一端到另一端的范围，所以 DIA 还有那种完全彻底的意思。好，那么 diagnose 这个动词它就表示诊断确诊，它其实是源自于名词 diagnosis， 那它的字首 DIA 表示完全或是穿越，那么字根 GNOSIS 它表示知悉、知识。同学们可以试着去联想说，完全知道病情，那就表示诊断出病症了，所以diagnosis 就表示诊断或是诊断结果。好，那我们顺便补充几个有相同字首的单字。第一个是 diabetes， 好，它的字首 DIA 表示穿越，那么字根 BETES 表示走，合在一起 diabetes 它字面的意思就是 pass through。 这其实在拉丁文和希腊文当中啊， diabetes 它表示排尿过多，这是糖尿病的症状之一，那也许就可以用一直有尿液通过流过的方式去联想 diabetes 表示糖尿病。好，那么第二个补充的是 diagonal， 它的字首 DIA 表示穿越， GON 表示角度， AL 是形容词字尾。那同学们可以试着联想，对角线啊，就像是从某个角度穿越到另一个角度，那这个字当形容词，它就表示对角线的、斜纹的，也可以当名词去表达对角线、斜线。那第3个补充的是 dialect， 它的字首 DIA 表示跨越，在点点点之间，那么字根 LECT 表示交谈，合在一起dialect 就是方言的意思。同学们也可以去联想说，彼此之间可以互相交谈、互相沟通的语言，那最早其实就是用当地的方言嘛，用这样去联想它的意思。好，那我们接着要介绍的是名词字尾 HOOD， 这个部分它有状态啊、情况、性质或是时期等等的意思。像我们文中的 likelihood， 它是由 likely可能的，然后加上 HOOD hood 表示状态，合在一起 likelihood 就可以指可能或是可能性。其他还有像 adulthood 成年人的状态或是时期，那就表示成年期。再来 hood 它也可以指说具有相同属性或是拥有共同情况的个体们，像 brotherhood 是指兄弟关系、手足之情或者是兄弟会，那么 sisterhood 就可以指姐妹情谊或是姐妹会、妇女会咯。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Predict. Dr. Simmons uses her knowledge of market trends to predict which new products will become popular. Alcohol. Matt has decided to stop drinking alcohol to improve his health. Abuse. Anna's drug abuse has had some negative effects on her mental health. Acquire. I'm hoping to acquire a new bicycle before I start college. Disturb. Harvesting an area's natural resources often disturbs its ecosystem. Diagnose. We will need to diagnose the patient first to determine the right treatment. Likelihood. The likelihood of rain this weekend is pretty high.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Okay, it's time now for our discussion starter. The question is, what is something that could be done to reduce the percentage of teenagers who suffer from mental illness, and how would that help?
I think that the rate of mental illness among teenagers could be reduced by creating an environment where students or young people have a safe place or safe space that they could go. They feel safe enough to talk to the adults around them. And that would help them by allowing them to feel comfortable to talk to someone.
Okay, well, one way to decrease the percentage of teens suffering from mental illness, according to me, would be to start school a little later in the morning. I remember hearing this years ago that students really aren't awake in the morning if you get to school too early, and they function better if you start school at, say, 10 or so. And, of course, if that relieves the pressure of schoolwork, then it will probably reduce pressure mentally, and they'll suffer less and less from mental illness. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Kiki.
See you next time.